So Classin is an edtech provider here in the UK, and we are organizing this trade mission to basically help introduce the UK tuition businesses to the for this for the purpose of this trip, the China online or international tuition ecosystem. So John and I were able to kind of work together over the last few months, and we were able to produce a rough agenda for you guys. I'm pretty sure that's the premise for this meeting. So happy
Correct.
to go over any questions that you might have.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Yukon. Really appreciate it. And we do really appreciate the support from Classin and from all the partners that we work with. But in particular, Classin have been very keen on supporting us for the trade mission to China, very keen on providing advice. They've done spotlight series in the past as well on delivering online tuition to China and the Far East. So we know this is an area where people have had an interest. The spotlight series was very well attended. I think we had about 25 participants. And a lot of really useful feedback for people. So we know this is something which people have been interested in. And by the look of the turnout today, obviously, this is a topic of a lot of that's really exciting for people. So we're not going to go through tons and tons of background, but I'm going to give a very brief overview of the trip, which will take 2 or 3 minutes. So the trip is scheduled to last around 9 days. And the dates are all in the prospectus, but effectively the whole purpose is to try and facilitate as many introductions for UK tuition providers, both individual tutors who potentially could be represented or could attend if they wanted to, and also for tuition businesses. There are 3 options to take part. Option 1 is the all-inclusive option, which does not include flights, and it's not an all-inclusive hotel. It just means that we will pay for the hotels for you, we'll pay for internal transfers for you, and we will mostly hold your hand a little bit, and you won't have too much to do when you get there. Obviously, when you get there, you'll still be paying for your own food and drink generally. It's not all inclusive like going to the Caribbean on a holiday. It's all inclusive in all the meetings, and all of the transport and accommodation is included. Flights to and from the UK are not included in that, so obviously you need to budget for those separately if you're coming from the UK. If you're sending someone who happens to not be based in the UK for whatever reason, obviously that's totally up to you, that's fine. The second option is to attend for the meetings only, and there's a third option which we thought would be really particularly accessible for individual tutors, which is for you to be represented by TTA, but you don't actually go to China yourself. So if you don't have the time, or it clashes with other things you have commitments for, or it's simply too much of an expense you to justify, then you can ask for TTA to represent you when we go there, and we will both present information about you and your tuition business, whether it's you individually as a tuition business or whether you actually have other tutors working with you. We'll provide that information to the partners there, and we'll provide the contacts and the introductions to you when we return as well. So there are those different options for participation. All of those are detailed in the prospectus, which I'm sure you've all had, and which is in the chat via the link. And the other thing just to bear in mind, obviously there will be changes to the schedule and the agenda later down the line. Whilst me and Yukon and Julius have worked very, very hard to try and put in place a very action-packed schedule with lots and lots of different meetings, we can't promise every single meeting will go ahead as planned. For all sorts of reasons, things might change later down the line. Certain meetings can't take place or get moved around or whatever. So if you're really, really, really pinning your hope on only one particular meeting, I just can't guarantee it will actually definitely take place. But as you can see, there's been a lot of meetings planned, so we're expecting to have a very, very busy and a very fruitful and productive trip. So now I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm actually gonna open the floor to the questions, because I'm assuming that all the other details and logistics you've read in the prospectus itself. There will be a point where I come back to sort of set some of the ground rules and things for the trade mission, because it's obviously we are representing the UK tuition sector, so we do have an expected standard of professionalism and conduct, which I'm sure is perfectly sensible, and I'm sure you all agree with. But we don't want anyone to be turning up and trying to badmouth each other or say silly things and get themselves in trouble or anything like that. But we can address that later if there's any further need to do. So let's open the floor to questions. There is a hand up feature on Google Meet. So at the bottom, you should see a hand icon. I think the most sensible way of doing this is for you to click on that hand icon at the bottom of your screen if you've got a question. I'm sure some people have turned up with burning questions. Callie.
Hi there. I just wanted to find out what relevance the trip would have for businesses that tutor younger students. So like not GCSE, not A-level, not university.
Yeah, so I'm going to give an initial quick response, and then I'm going to pass over to Yukon, okay? So my initial quick response is there are a number of meetings which are scheduled for for organizations that work almost exclusively with primary age students. So it would definitely be relevant in some respect. Obviously, some of the meetings would not be relevant. So it's up to you whether you want to attend them for interest, or if you just want to skip them and go and see Forbidden City or something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. So some of them are specifically for organizations of that size, that sort of level, operating at the primary level. My understanding is that the organizations at primary level are most interested in English language tuition, not necessarily other subjects particularly, although you can maybe able to add a bit more meat to those bones if I'm wrong or if I'm misguided.
John, I think you are very accurate in that description. So there are a number of meetings that we have put in place that will specifically target, I think, anywhere between kindergarten to year 6 level tuition. So if you look at, I think it might be the just getting the calendar up here. Wednesday, the 25th of September, there's Whole High ESL. So that's K-6 English tuition. The day just before that, Tuesday, the 24th of September, that's also an ESL company, K-6 English tuition. And later down the line, if you look at Thursday, the 26th of September, there are 3 companies that will likely to also fall into that category. So I think definitely there's going to be a number of companies on this list that we're going to meet specifically. And I believe John is trying to put together also an evening reception at some point in Beijing and also Shanghai. And perhaps we'll use those opportunities to also invite some more companies that have not been listed on this agenda for specific meetings and sharing occasions, but they'll just show up. And there's a good number of those that can also be K-6 or early years. But again, like John said, for that age range is primarily going to be English as a second language tuition. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yukon. And I'll just add a clarification point there, which is that whoever you are and whatever your niche is in the tuition sector, there will almost certainly be some meetings which are not really appropriate for you, right? It's a bit like TTA benefits. TTA offers hundreds and hundreds of benefits. No one can possibly use them all. I think we'd probably fall over if you did try and use them all. But there's going to be some meetings there which you don't see any relevance to, but that's fine. The idea is that you'll come away and 1 or 2 or 3 of those meetings will have been very, very valuable, right? And will make the whole trip worthwhile. So my experience of international trade, which I've done for a couple of years now, and I'm sure some people here may have also been doing international trade for a while. You won't find everything is valuable, but the things that are valuable really, really work. Right, next question there. So Callie, was that answering your question? Okay, perfect. Heather, I think you're next on my list.
Hi, John. So a couple of questions. One is obviously Chinese. Is there going to be a possibility of a translator there, or are we going to assume that everyone speaks English? Do we need to bring collaterals that are translated into Chinese, or again, is there an assumption that we'll only be dealing with English people? And then can you also just run through the format of the meetings? Will it be like a big conference room where people are walking around different stands, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, so a few different questions there, and I'll address some of those myself, and then I'll pass on to Yukon as well. So we will invite everyone who is participating, including the people who are being represented by TTA and are not attending, traveling to China themselves. We will invite everyone to submit a up to 2-page sort of overview of your company and your offering, so that we will then share that. We expect people will probably produce that in English. If you want to produce a Chinese version that we can pass on, then that's great, although I understand that most people will not do that, and I will discuss with Yukon, but we're expecting that most of the organizations would have someone who can speak English who could then translate that internally if they wanted to do that. But we're not turning up advertising that everyone to here speaks Mandarin, because evidently it's not the case. I don't speak Mandarin. At least not very much, very little. So I wouldn't worry on that. If there are any meetings which do require translation, we will make sure that there are translators. Probably the host will provide the translators, but otherwise they will know that the people attending are English speakers and not necessarily Mandarin speakers, and therefore they are not going to send people who can't speak any English, we hope, unless there's actually a good reason. If there is a good reason, we expect they'll provide a translator, and we'll make sure we arrange that well in advance. In terms of how the meetings are going to work, that's a really, really good question. It's one that's been brought up to me before. There's obviously going to be a hard cap of 25 delegates attending in person. Okay, we've already had a good number of people registered in interest. There will be a waiting list, so if some people drop out for whatever reason, then obviously we'll go to the next person on the waiting list. So please do register if you are interested. Because there's a hard cap of 25, obviously it can be quite busy if all 25 people happen to turn up to some of the meetings, which I expect they will in some cases. Then obviously it will be quite busy. We will structure some of the meetings. So some of them maybe run more like a speed dating sort of thing. Some of them may be run as a networking event. We will organize each meeting in collaboration with the partners there, with Glassin and Yukon, and in collaboration with other people we're working with. And please follow our guidance and instructions when we're saying how the meeting is going to be formatted. It's fine if you don't want to take part in the meeting, you want to go somewhere else, but don't turn up to the meeting and say, oh, I'm going to do it totally different, and get out of the way. Then I'll be telling you to go home, not take part anymore, because we can't have people just running around like riot. So it's going to be, we're going to structure the meeting so that it's fair and everyone gets a fair chance to represent themselves. I don't want you to expect that you're going to spend hours and hours talking to some of these people unless you invite them for lunch the next day or something, in which case obviously spend as long as you like. But in the actual meetings themselves, you're not going to be spending a lot of one-on-one time with these people. There will probably be some talks. I'll probably say a few words just to introduce the UK tuition sector to the hosts, to thank the hosts and the people that have supported us. But you're not going to get a lot of one-on-one time in those meetings. You can, if you want to, offer small gifts, but again, I'll let you can say a bit about whether that's appropriate or not in these settings. But you're not going to be sitting there for hours and hours with these people. So don't try and hog the room and just like swarm towards whoever you think the CEO is and mob them like it's some sort of Taylor Swift concert. It's not. So please bear that in mind. Yeah, you're going to be having an introduction, so you introduce who you are. You're not telling your life story to them. They don't need your life story to work out if they're going to be able to work with you. The follow-up, any follow-up meetings you do any follow-up you do once you've returned to the UK, that's where the business can happen. They're not going to sign a contract on the day. Okay. Does that make sense, Heather?
It does. Thank you
I'm
very
going to
much.
pass on to Yukon in case he has anything to add there, please.
So not much to add, but really just a quick word on how the meetings might be run. The reason why we have these agendas, and we probably have about 2 or 3 meeting slots per day, is really because every single one of these meetings that we have specifically named will include maybe a short session of a presentation from that particular company or that organization's leader to give a brief introduction to us about who they are, what they do, what kind of situation they're in, and what kind of support or service they're requiring. Because we understand that the Chinese tuition market is vastly different from the one that we currently operate in here in the UK. So it is quite worth our time to just have a better understanding from these industry leaders to tell us what exactly are the key to building a business or building a business relationship with companies over there. So that's the reason why. So it is very likely going to take different formats. The speed dating elements and all of that can be a part of it. And that's the reason why the 2-pager that John was talking about before is very, very crucial here, so that we can just pass them out to these people who come to meet us, and they'll have a very quick idea as to who we are and what we do and what we can offer, so that we can build follow-ups. Yeah.
And just to reiterate on that point that Yukon's alluded to there, I would very strongly recommend, if you're going to participate in the trade mission, that you're in listening mode and learning mode a lot of the time. This is a new market. Don't just go in and say, oh, I've got English tutors, buy my English tutors, buy my English tutors. You're not turning up into this is not like a market stand in the middle of some little town where you're going to start selling oranges and start shouting at people. Okay. Learn from what they're asking about, learn about what it is that the demand is in China, learn about how it's different in China, and really take the opportunity to understand what it is they're looking for, so that later on, when you do the follow-up and you say, great, we listened to you, we really found it interesting, you can offer them something which actually is relevant to them. If you just turn up on day one and before they've even opened their mouth, you're saying, buy my tutor, they're doing this, this, and this. I have no idea if that's even what they're looking for. You're wasting your time and you're making yourself look a bit silly as well, I think. So I would very strongly recommend people that are participating, listening mode is the most important thing. Get market intelligence about what do they want in the market. Don't just turn up there to start broadcasting yourself. That's not what it's about. Yeah. Okay, next one on the list, Munir.
I don't want to put that up, sorry.
It's really for you, Ken. We're aware of the policies in China with regards to using online tutors to deliver English language, especially to young learners. So how are we going to get over that when we arrive in China, considering that there's current foreign policies to prevent what we're looking to achieve?
Right. So I'm not sure if you're aware that there's actually a new set of policies that just came out this February. That was that was acting as a correction to the previous, I would say, harsher restrictions on these policies. So I would highly advise you to read up on those, because I think those are not very well covered in the media. Yeah, because people seem to have forgotten about all of this story. So definitely take a look at that. But essentially, the key idea is that in terms of online tuition, things are relatively back to normal, back to kind of business as usual. There are obviously, we're operating in slightly more restricted territory than before. However, it doesn't mean that door is fully shut. So that is the reason why we kind of conceptualize this trip is really because we have received a lot of customer demand from our business partners or clients in China asking us for resources to get access to tutors overseas. Therefore, we're organizing this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd just like to take this opportunity now to also introduce somebody else who's joined us from the call who has a lot of experience with the Chinese market. I'm going to introduce Linda Mann, who is also on the call and who works a lot with Chinese students. Linda, do you want to say a few words and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hello. Can I share the screen? I can just introduce myself.
Maybe do you need to be co-host?
Yeah, let me look how to.
At the bottom, there should be a box with an up arrow if you want to briefly share your screen to share.
Let me look. Hold on 1 minute.
At the very bottom of the screen, there's a little square with an up arrow. It says present now if you're over it.
Yeah, but choose what to share. What? Hold on, maybe my computer loading or something.
Or if you're having tech issues, do you want to just introduce what it is that
I just quickly introduce myself. So my company is a UK schooling. I set up this company about 10 years ago. So it's mainly running summer school, online tutoring. My company client is 90% is coming from China. So I know China, the market quite well. For the moment, I work in the Oxford University, Lincoln College for their summer program. So I'm enroll their summer students in different countries. So I know Chinese market quite well, especially COVID-19, that 2 or 3 years, we're running a lot of tutoring from China. So our students, 80% is from there. So I'm very, very familiar about the Chinese market. So if you have any question about the platforms, how to talk to the clients, how to talk or something, you can ask me. I can try my best to help you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Linda. Okay, so we're going to go through the rest of the questions. So the next one on my list is Mitchell Byrne.
Hi there. I just wondered if you could let everybody know what are the price points for the Chinese market, and whether there is any demand from the businesses or institutions you've spoken to already for moving these students to UK schools. Is that something that has been kind of expressed. Thanks.
So I'm going to give a very, very short overview of my understanding, then I'll pass on to Yukon and Linda as well. So, so the price point, obviously there's a huge variety of price points, just like there's a huge variety of price points in the UK, right? Everything from the very, very wealthiest. So if you imagine the wealthiest clients in the UK and the wealthiest clients in China, they're going to be similar, right? For them, price is not really an object, but they really want an absolutely fantastic service, and it's very important to them. They get exactly what they want and what they're paying for. I don't think we're really talking about addressing a very low price end of the market with this trade mission. So the focus is not really going to be on sort of very, very, very low cost budget tuition. I think really where we're coming down to on this trade mission is targeting sort of mid price point, and obviously that's likely to be group sessions from what I understand. And yes, as a part of that, the second part of that question was, is there any interest in people that want to relocate and do schooling in the UK? I think there's a bit of that. Obviously, bearing in mind that to send your child from China to the UK to go to school is a very big undertaking for some people. I don't think you should bank on that being enormous, but obviously China's a very large country, so even if it's a very small percentage, you're still talking about a significant number of people. I'm going to pass over to the people that know better than me, which is Yukon and Linda. Yukon, do you want to say something first about that? And then Linda, please, if you can respond to that question about price point and relocation to the UK.
Yeah, as John just said, you need to clearly know what kind of the students you target. Okay, so when you talk to the companies, you can know, the company background, get a little bit research about the company, the background, and then know about their student, demanding the price. For Chinese parents, okay, even the company, they are very demanding. Okay, so you need to bear in mind the price. So when you say out the price, you need to think about it. Normally, they are required each session that they have the homework. You have to mark the homework, so you need to bear in mind. Okay, so once you told the company the price, later you increase, they will unhappy. So when you talk to the company, it's better said in lessons only one lesson, or do we need to provide the homework? Do we need to mark the homework? Bear in mind this.
And
yeah.
You can please.
Yeah, and so it's for some parents or some agents, even will ask you, say, after each lessons, you need to produce one report. So yeah, this kind of same, think about it. So before you give that price, if you're not sure something, it's better say, okay, I know your requirement, then we come back to you later the price. Then you get a little bit time thinking, put the money together. I part of this, the Chinese client or their company, they're quite good. Okay, their supporting is quite good. It is a little bit different with the UK, because sometimes I have some students who already study in UK, and it's different with the students who in China. Okay, in China, they're more like to, we give them more support, the teacher more support. The students who in UK is more independent. So, for example, they will say the student who in China, okay, the lesson is tomorrow, and the parents say, why we didn't send a reminder to students, the lesson is tomorrow. Okay, why you didn't remind the student, he didn't turn up or something. Okay, but in UK, the student, they're more independent, they know what they're doing. So when you're dealing with the company, they're based in China, the student in China, so just bear in the mind how many services they wanted from you.
And I think that's where, thanks very much for that, Linda. That's where this learning about what the companies and the partners they're potentially looking for and what they're expecting is very important. That's why we come back to that point of you're going there really to learn about how to get into the market, learn about what they want in that market, rather than just to go and sell exactly what you do in the UK, copy and paste. You can please. Is there something you want to add to that?
I think Linda covered majority of the points. One thing that Linda pointed out, which is quite a distinctive difference between the Chinese and the UK tuition market, is that I think for majority of Chinese tuition companies, what they offer, and also for majority of what the Chinese parents expect from tuition companies, is a curriculum-based service. is what we typically call the high dosage, high concentration tuition, is where you have to actually deliver a course. Not as much as, you know, what we typically see here in the UK, where it's more so a coaching, kind of mentoring, one-to-one, side-by-side kind of working together arrangement that we have with students. So I think that's one thing that I would highly recommend people who are interested in going on to this trip to really think about, to really properly build a program that's well structured, typically within, you know, a few months or a duration of semester, to help students systematically learn something, especially, you know, if we're talking about UK or international curriculum, because those students will be enrolled in typically Chinese schools that are running national curriculum. So they are really learning with us something completely new, and they really needed to, we really need to assume that they have zero baseline to get started with. So I think that's a fundamental difference compared to, whereas over here, what we provide is really just a supplementary service to their in-school learning. So that's one thing. And in terms of price points, I believe the price points can vary very, very greatly. If you're catching a low market, you can expect any hourly rate between maybe 12 to 20 pounds, or even lower. You can sink down even lower. But if you're really catching, you know, the top end of the market, there's no hard cap on that. I have heard stories of people paying, you know, well over 200, 300 pounds for just 1 hour of English lesson, right? So that kind of stuff could also happen. So it really depends. Yeah, and it really depends on, you know, the conversation, and also the kind of local partner that you end up working with. What's their local market positioning? If you are collaborating with them, are you helping them to build a brand new higher end arm to their existing business, or are you simply fitting into their existing market positioning, which is to, you know, target a set market demographic that they're already working with? So those are going to be the key questions that we need to find answers to, and I simply cannot give you those answers right now. I think that's something that is up to every single one of you to work out with the people that you're going to meet when you go there.
Thanks so much. You can really interesting, and I think really useful for people to take away that that message. Again, it comes back to you're going there to really learn about the market rather than just to try and tell them what you do. But obviously, you're then going to then try and understand, well, how do you offer something that is being demanded in that market? And for those people that are being represented, obviously, we will pass back information to you from every single one of the meetings. Obviously, some of the meetings and some of those partners might not be relevant to you, but you'll have the opportunity to then focus on following up with the ones that were more relevant to you, so that you could see if you could follow up and if you could offer a service they have a demand for there. Right, I've got 2 more questions here, and then I'm going to go to some of the questions that are in the chat. So we're going to go for Karen Ormerod first, please, and then we've got Sam Lynch, and then I'm going to go through some questions in the chat, and we'll see where we are there. Karen, please.
Hi, guys. Thank you for hosting it and giving the information and the opportunity. 2 questions, if I may be so bold. John, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about representation for tuition agencies or individual tutors, as you mentioned. And I'm really interested to find out, and perhaps others will be too, on what differences in the Chinese market we might need to be aware of before we make a decision to attend. Thank you.
So in terms of the representation, what was the question around representation?
I just wondered how that will work, like
practically
how that will work.
Yeah, so what we will do is when we submit, so we'll collect from all of the participants a short, maximum 2-page overview of the services you can offer or what you do. Okay, that is up to you to produce and send to us. It can be in English, so you don't need to translate it to Chinese. We will then provide that along with all the other delegates' information to all of the partners, so they'll be able to see. And we will try and structure it. So if you can make it clear as to what kind of levels you offer, what kind of subjects you offer, if there are particular things. If you say, I just do English language training, and here's my stuff, then that's going to make it easier for us. We'll say, here's the ones that just do English language, here's the ones that just do academic tuition, here's the ones that do multiple things, whatever. We will then also make contacts with all of, obviously, TTA will be representing you at every single one of the meetings, and then we'll collect contacts from every single one of those meetings, and we'll pass them back to all the people who have been represented there by TTA. So we will then pass you back a little bit of information about obviously all the companies. So all the companies will provide us with some information, and then also we'll provide you back with contact details for the people who are the most relevant point of contact for you to have that initial conversation. And you'll be able to, we can then potentially introduce you to some of those people directly and say, this is so-and-so who was being represented on the China Trade Mission recently. They would like to talk about X, Y, and Z. And then you can obviously take it from there. Okay, so that's the logistics of how it will work. We won't spam introduce you to every single one, because that's not going to be productive. Most of those people will say, I don't need to be introduced to K-6 STEM learning programs because I teach, I don't know, A-level maths or something, right? So then it's not going to be relevant. So we wouldn't just spam introduce to everyone, because everyone would start ignoring me and no one would find that very useful. But if there is a particular person who say, oh, that's great, look, I've really identified 3 people here, or I'd love to speak to in more detail, then we can just facilitate that introduction for you.
Perfect, thank you.
There was another part of that question which I've forgotten now, which was for Yukon and Linda, was it?
It was for Yukon. Yukon, I was wondering if you could help me to understand a little bit more about the differences in the Chinese market and Chinese tuition market compared to here. Just a very brief whistle stop so that we can make a good decision on whether to attend.
Okay, I think the first thing that would be quite different is in terms of the cycles of the market. So, you know, obviously in the UK over here, summer is typically our downtime for tuition businesses. In China is the opposite. So summer and winter holiday time is usually the busier time, where families would actually book, you know, block book vacation packages for their child to, you know, maybe supplement on a brand new international curriculum that they don't typically get access to in school, or to, you know, really kind of rocket up their English skills to prepare them for an international studying career. So all that kind of stuff typically take place during the holiday times, which I suppose would actually balance out, you know, our downtime and make better use of our resources over here. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think majority of the tuition classes that we are going to be providing in China, well, depending on the specific demographic and the level of market you're targeting, but just the vast majority will be small group lessons instead of one-on-one lessons. So the advantage in that is obviously that because you're building small group classes, you are really building a program, you're building a package. So you have clearly scheduled lesson times. You don't ever need to worry too much about lesson consumption, because if people top up a certain amount of credits with you and they don't actually book in sessions, then you have to find ways to tell them, to nudge them to take the lessons. In China, when you work with a B2B partner, chances are they're going to work with you to build a program out. So when the program expires, that's typically it. And because you're building a group lessons, chances are you will be able to recover your costs pretty well on, you know, what you paid your tutors, and you end up potentially working out a better margin. It all depends on how that negotiation goes with the company that's going to do all the local sales and marketing for you. Yeah. So I think those are the most distinctive differences in terms of how the business will run, and in terms of how, you know, in terms of the content or the academic side of things, I think is relatively similar, because we are providing basically what we do best over here. So nothing needs to change significantly. But like I said, just that assumption needs to be corrected, which is we need to assume that the students that we're dealing with have no understanding of the British curriculum or any international curriculum for that matter. And we must give them from 0 to 100 guidance, instead of, you know, assuming that they have a cushion which is that they go to school. They do go to school, but it's a completely different curriculum. The terminology and everything is very different because they're set in 2 different languages. So we need to really hold their hands and, build that foundation from the ground up. Yeah.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Yukon. Last question we're going to take from the hands up is going to be for Sam Lynch, and then we're going to go through the questions that are in the chat. So Sam, please.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, it's just a really quick kind of mechanical question, really. It says here one of the objectives, of course, is to meet with potential Chinese clients, agents, and other partners. It's just within that, could you just elaborate on Chinese partners? Will there be any scope to meet with any local tuition businesses? Or am I right in thinking that most of these introductions are going to be with institutions, maybe individual clients, that sort of thing? Thank you.
So in terms of tuition businesses, we think, I mean, a lot of the organizations are not directly tuition businesses themselves, but they actually are sort of agents or partners. But in terms of the organizations themselves, you know some of them better. What would you say is the best summary? Are there some of those that also deliver tuition themselves, or is that not really the focus of most of these?
Yeah, so I would say there are a few high schools that offer international curriculums in there, and those will be very easy to spot. They have high school in their name. Every other one is basically a tuition business that offer tuition services locally by themselves. But obviously, there's always that attraction of having direct overseas tutor support from a partner here in the UK. So obviously, they don't get a whole lot of resources like that in China. So that's the point of us meeting with them and kind of build a new business venture together. Yeah, offer our services to them. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Yuka. Does that help, Sam?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys.
Perfect. Right, I'm going to go through some of the questions quite quickly now in the chat, and where there are things that I don't think I can answer, or where I think you can or Linda need to add something, then we'll add a bit more detail as well. So for those being represented but not attending, will they be able to present by a webcam for any of the meetings? We will, if it's possible to do so, but we can't. Obviously, time zone differences will mean that it won't necessarily be 11 o'clock in the morning for you in the UK if it's 11 o'clock in the morning in China. So you just bear in mind that it won't be practical for most. You should assume it won't happen. If it does happen, then great, right? But if you're being represented, we're not expecting that we'll necessarily be able to connect you via webcam. Where ClassIn, for example, are able to provide a hybrid element to an event, we're obviously going to be very keen to try and do that. But again, we can't guarantee it. So just you need to proceed on the basis that that won't happen. And if it does happen and you can attend, then great, it's a bonus. Is that you can? That's fair. Are there any of the meetings which you've specifically designed to be hybrid events, or we're working on that basis for all of them at the moment?
So if necessary, we can turn majority of the activities into hybrid. But then again, it's time zone logistics. Yeah. It's a matter of whether it makes sense or not, because if we have morning meetings in China, it's going to be 2, 3 a.m. over here. And I don't think it's practical for people to just wake up and attend. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did once do a presentation to a bunch of Vietnamese publishers at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, but it's quite rough to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and do a presentation for people thousands of miles away. And I appreciate not everyone's going to be able to realistically do that. Okay, next question. Would you recommend every tutor being represented provide a presentation of our company and the services we offer? The answer is yes. If you're being represented, you have the opportunity to have your information about your own organization being sent to all of the Chinese partners. Definitely take advantage of that opportunity. Don't try and be too prescriptive about what it is you do necessarily, unless there's only one thing you do and you do it really, really well. Obviously, you're still going to want to learn and potentially adapt your service to the Chinese market. But yes, we do suggest you do that, and we will provide information about that close to the time. Will you know in advance of the tuition partners that will be meeting? Would we know in advance of the tuition partners that will be meeting on the trade missions? You will get a chance. We will tell you who the other participants are. So far from the registrations that I've already seen before 9 o'clock this morning, there's a big mix of different tuition companies that have already registered. So not everyone's doing the same thing, offering the same thing. In terms of the partners you'll be meeting in China, they're in the prospectus. So you can take their name and you can Google them. Obviously, we'll also provide information from them in the future, which we'll ask the companies to provide information which we'll share from them to you in the same way that we're sharing your information to them. A question here about families relocating to the UK, not necessarily about families relocating to the UK, but about people who wish to prepare their children for entrance exams for UK boarding schools. Will there be companies who can connect us with students who are applying to UK boarding schools? I think that's a relatively small market. You can some of the companies in that category.
Yeah, that's a very, very small market, actually super niche market. So we didn't prepare any of that kind of companies in our tour because we didn't think that was gonna make the most amount of sense for everyone to attend. But I think we have someone that's very qualified to talk about this issue here. I think Linda's company does exactly that. So if Linda's able to build a successful business out of this, there's definitely demand for it. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, we got lots of students, and especially, this couple of years, we got lots of students who want to come to UK study 13 plus, 16 plus. Even now, some students, they want to come over here like 9 plus. So we did help a lot of students for their entrance exams. For example, like writings, maths, so this kind of the work. So this kind of the job require the tutor is quite high, because the students who want to come to UK, the school started their 13 plus or 16 plus, they already have a good foundations. So they wanted the tutor give the tutoring is their expectations are quite high. And so they are not like, the language school or just beginning of GCSE, because this kind of parents know their children aiming come to UK, join the school. For example, they always ask like Eton College, Westminster, Harrow, Broughton College. So this kind of the school, even not just only Chinese family want it, is a whole world family want it. So when you got this kind of company ask you this kind of preparations, you need to know what kind of tutor you get for them. Okay, so they are very, for example, last year we had 2 families. Okay, one student wanted to go to Harrow, the other one wanted to go to the Westminster. It's for 13 plus, and the child from 6 years old, the parents already preparations. So one of my tutors sample in the maths, the student only about, only about 9 or 10 years old, their math levels already reach here already, year 8, year 9. And my tutor is help them prepare is nearly had the GCSE, the levels. So this kind of client, you just bear in the mind, they are very, very advanced for, the students are very advanced. So for the application, I don't know how about your companies. If your company do the application process, you can talk to them and say, we not just only help for tutoring side, we can help you for the application side. For my company, I help the student prepare the entrance exam. I help the the family, the children looking the tutors, because we can follow up how the student is. Then we help them apply it. After we help them got it. Then after that, and then once they come to UK, we help them give a tutor for them to follow up them until they go to GCSE or go to A-level or go to university. This kind of a family, they love it. They love it, but they are very, very demanding. So when you this kind of customers, you have to bear in mind the price. Is that help?
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Is Kelly? Sorry, no, it's Charlotte. Charlotte, are you still here?
Yes, yeah, I'm here. It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's why last year we did a couple of them, 2 or 3, and the one went to Harold, and the other one this year going to the Westminster. Okay.
Westminster.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the students, you know, he just only about year 7, but his levels already come to GCSE levels.
Yeah, but which, for those of you that don't know the system for entrance application for those schools, that's sometimes it's quite normal. Brilliant. No, thank you very much for that, Linda, and thank you, Charlotte, for that question, and thank you, Ken, as well. I think we've answered the next one. Is there demand for younger learners? There is some demand. Obviously, there's a certain subset of the market, but yes, that the trade mission, we will introduce to people who are interested in that that aspect of the market as well. And Andrea's question, you mentioned that non-attenders will be represented. How would my tuition services be presented? So the only way in which we would represent your tuition services is by the information you provide on your up to 2-page information sheet. So we're not going to say anything else about you other than what you've said about yourself, but we will then provide the introduction to you, but we'll provide the information to you from the potential Chinese partners, and then after that, obviously, we can facilitate introductions that are relevant. Okay, don't ask to be introduced to absolutely every single person that we send to you, because obviously it's going to be do a couple at a time. Otherwise, it's not like a spam bot. This is about trying to actually facilitate you having a productive introduction. If you do 3 or 4 and then they don't go ahead, then you want to be introduced to another 3 or 4. That's totally fine. But if you say, please introduce me to 371 contacts, I'm not mail much. It's not also the most productive way for you to work. There's someone here. For those of us not going, will there be any info be fed back about the company so we can learn too? Yes, yeah, that's been answered. Right, someone's tried to find tutoring insurance for tutoring online students outside of the UK. We do have a partner, which is Morton Michelle, who provide insurance, and they do allow you to do they do offer insurance for if you deliver tuition outside of the UK. They will ask, insurers will ask, under what law does the provision of the service take place, because they will only insure things that are under UK law. If this will depend on the contract. This doesn't depend on where the client is based necessarily. This will depend on the contract between you and the provider. Obviously, I don't know what contract you're going to agree with the provider. It's totally up to you. But if you use your standard supply contracts, because if you have, presumably you will have standard contracts already. If you bought the compliance back from TTA, you certainly do. If you haven't, or you've probably got your own contracts you use, then presumably you'll know what jurisdiction those contracts are under. For the TTA contracts, it's UK law, but obviously it's something for you to agree with the partner themselves. So just bear in mind that tuition, so many insurers will ask for that. Would you give us a template of what to include in the 2-page summary, and when do we need to send this through by? So you don't need to send it through any time particularly soon. It will probably be, we'll set a deadline in August when you need to send this through by. We're not going to provide a template for what you should include, but what do you want a partner company in China to hear about you? Because these are the people that it's going to be shared with. And if you say you need to represent yourself, almost just to try and envisage what sorts of companies you want to come back to you and to try and find out more. So I can't tell you how to run your business and how to sort of advertise your business, because I don't know what your business is anywhere near as well as you do. But I would just say, look, this is something about how you representing what your strengths are for potential prospective Chinese partners. And that's I can't really go further than that. If you want to stress your unique selling points or whatever else in that 2-pager, then that's fine. Go ahead. But that's up to you to decide what you want to put in there. We're not going to send you a form to do it. Last couple of questions here. When would we expect to know if we accept it and if it's definitely going ahead? I mean, it's almost certainly going ahead now, because we already have enough people. We already have over the minimum that we said we needed. There's there are still a few places left to attend, but there's not many. And then there'll be a waiting list for the people who are, if you want to actually go yourself, option 1 or 2, there are only 25 places. I think we're already up to something like 17 or 18. So there's not a lot of spaces left. If you, after the 26th of June, which is the final deadline for the deposits to have been paid, if anyone's deposit is not paid, we'll then go on to the next person on the waiting list. Okay, so if you've registered but you don't pay your deposit by the 26th of June, we'll then contact people to say, to the next person on the waiting list, to say, look, we can offer you a place. So you'll be told by the Monday the 25th of June, Monday the 24th of June, whether or not you've got a confirmed place or you're on the waiting list. You'll be told by probably the following week if you've been on the waiting list, if you've actually got a confirmed place now because someone has not been able to make it. Do you know any specific companies looking for foreign languages tuition, or does it tend to be mainly English as a second or additional language? Yukon and Linda, what about other languages other than English? Is there a demand for that? Or Linda?
Yeah, I think so. Nowadays in China, okay, especially for the international schools, okay, they are, I know a lot of schools, they started to like French, Spanish, Germans, okay. This kind of 3 languages is quite popular now for Europeans. Yeah, can try if you have this kind of the teachers, okay, I can give you a little bit of advice for you put your portfolios, because I went for the conference a lot, okay. I met lots of clients in the world. Better write every single you have for your portfolio, okay. The agents, the company, because they don't know you, they just only read your portfolios. From your portfolios, something attracted them. They say, wow, this company, I love it, unique. So I wanted to make an appointment to see you. So just write as much as you have put inside. Okay, so give you more opportunity to have the meeting with the client. And to be honest, as I know, the Chinese market is huge. It's huge. You don't know which company they have a potential lots of customers. For example, this time I back to China, I'm surprised. I got 200 students. They go to Boston University this summer. Normally, I always do like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, the summer camp. But it's a surprise. One of the clients came over, talked to me, said, we have 200 students, Linda, but our budget is not rich for, Oxford, Cambridge, London schools, okay, university. We want some little bit lower. So in the end, I help them create to go to the, Boston University. So that's also why try to put what you can do. Okay, if you have to tutor like European language, any language, just put it in. It's not much deal. Just put one sentence to say we can provide this language teaching, or we have this kind of the tutor. We help you. Sometimes you will get some surprise.
Okay, Yukon, was there anything you wanted to add to that as well, in terms of languages or in terms of what to add to the prospectus so that the companies are going to write to themselves?
I think definitely foreign languages, aside from English, is a growing demand in China. However, the students that choose to take foreign languages aside from English can be typically categorized into 2 parts. One is that they go through the regular national curriculum education all the way up to the end of high school, and then they enroll themselves into a university, China-based university, and then they major in a foreign language that's not English, right? So that has nothing to do with us. The other ones are the ones that are either existing enrollees of international schools, or they're simply, expanding their interest to look for a foreign language to study outside of English. That is a relatively smaller market. I mean, just pure percentages, relatively smaller market. However, any percentage in China it will result in a big number in terms of the absolute quantity. So yes, the demand is there. However, they're more scattered. So it's probably, my guess is that it's probably harder to locate those individual customers, and it's probably harder to find agencies that will help you to pull them into one place together. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Yukon. And the next question, what are the visa requirements for the trip? You will know China better than me. Is it just a tourist visa people will need to attend?
Yeah, I
Or
was
do they
actually
need
just
to-
looking at this. I saw this question and I just did a quick Google search. I think either way is fine. Because usually, depending on where you are in the UK, I think you will be able to apply for a Chinese visa at the embassy in London, or I think there's also a visa application center in Manchester. I'm pretty sure there's also one in Scotland if you go to Edinburgh. Tourist visa is fine. You absolutely need a visa for this. I know a lot of people are now talking about, if you are on a business trip, you can get the 144 hours, which works out to be about 5 or 6 days in China without a visa to go in Beijing or Shanghai. However, we're traveling between Beijing and Shanghai, so you would definitely going to need a visa for this.
You need a visa.
Tourist visa is okay. Business visa is also fine. Depending on what you guys, John, it really depends on what works best for TTA members. If you want to apply for a tourist visa, you can get it as soon as your flights and hotels are booked. If you want the business visa, what we can do is that we can, Classing can provide an invitation letter for all the people that have signed up. So people who have paid the deposit ready to go, we can issue invitation letters to facilitate with your application. Yeah. So it depends.
I think you're right that probably a tourist visa is normal with these things. I'm going to just call in Munir just to check that I'm not wrong on that. Like normally all the trade missions I've been on, all the trade delegations have all been tourist visas. Munir, is that right?
Yes, unless the country doesn't offer tourist visas, then tourist visas are absolutely fine. Generally, and you can tell me different, as long as you are not actually transacting whilst you are in the country, then a tourist visa is fine.
Yeah, that's true. That is correct. Yeah.
Sorry, I just give a little bit of advice because this March, February, I brought some professor from Oxford, Cambridge. We visited China. We tried to apply the visit visa. They asked lots of questions. In the end, we decided that the company issued the invitation letter. I think if you have the company issue the invitation letter, we're much easier. They're simpler.
Okay.
Then,
Well, TTA can coordinate with Clarkson and other companies, and Linda, maybe you'll be able to assist where we can then get invitation letters to support the application anyway, and then in that case we'll be able to pass those on we'll be able to pass on a list of people who are coming, and then obviously we'll be able to get those for all the people. So we will provide visa support in terms of actually making sure that where possible we can help you to get the visa, and then obviously you will then need to complete that process yourself.
Because when you go to China, okay, you need to fill a lot of forms. If you say you are tourist, they will ask you where you traveling, which your hotel, and then which places you visit. But because you go to the conference, okay, just got invitation letter is much easier.
Oh, you're saying a business visa is easier?
Yeah, because it's for business, it's much easier. Just get invitation letters. We are invited this person attend our conference. Okay, this is a date. This accommodation. Easy, handy. No any questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Sorry,
maybe Linda and Yukon. I'm gonna need some invitation letters, please.
This is the way we did. We got the Xi'an Jiaotong University, okay, the invitation for the professor. So when I look at, okay, too formal, and they only gave the professor for 3 months. We said, no, we don't like it this way because the professor wanted to go back to next year. So in the end, I look at, then I talk to one of the companies. The company issued the invitation letter for the professor. So then he got 2 years of visas. Okay, for the companies, maybe they engage with one for the Chinese company. They want to go back to next year, which is they can use 2 years of visa. So think about this way. I think it's better.
Okay. Thanks very much, Linda. And thanks, Yukon, for your offer to support with that as well. Yes, it's a great question, Callie. Well done. We will definitely support that process. Don't book flights or anything until we confirm that you're definitely coming, which is be on Monday, the 24th of June. Because if you book flights before that and we say, oh, I'm sorry, you're number 26 on the list, then we're not. I can't change your position in the list because you booked flights already. Please don't book any travel arrangements or visas until we tell you it's definitely going ahead and you're definitely coming. We as I said, we only have 25 places available. So we can't guarantee that just because you've registered, you're definitely going to be coming in, unless obviously you're in that first 25. If you're on the waiting list, obviously we'll update you as soon as we can make a place available for you. And then once we've confirmed the trip, we'll update you if you're on the waiting list and we're not been able to offer you a place. Okay, right. Next question. So, considering the legislation around tutoring in China restrict, will the Chinese government be involved or informed? Yukon, is there any? Will the Chinese government? There'll be Chinese government officials, I presume, that we'll invite to the embassy reception.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are not really doing any kind of state level transactions. So I don't think there is necessary to involve or invite the government officials. But unless we have business partners over here in TTA who are interested in getting into the state education market, you can attempt, but it is not necessary, and we have not planned for that. But their absence doesn't mean that we're doing anything illegal or not right. So you have nothing to worry. You have nothing to worry about. It's not a place as scary as you read on internet or newspapers. So yeah, you can be quite relaxed about that.
Number 3 on that list. Thanks very much for that, Yukon. Number 3 on that list is: do the trip leaders have experience in leading trade missions? I have to be honest, I've never led a trade mission, but I've been part of several, and I've been talking to a lot of people who have been part of or leading several. Munir, who's on the call, who hopefully will be able to attend, has been part of many trade missions, and I think he has an MBE for his work with international trade, so he's been a very useful source of advice as well. We have been working with the Department of Business and Trade. Munir, do you want to say anything else? Or at least agree that we have spoken about it?
Yes. Haven't trade missions, but been on over trade missions in the world. So I know how they work. I know what's expected. I know how to get the best out of trade missions. We've done exceptionally well trade missions within the education sector. So if I attend this trade, which I'm hoping I can, then I'll happily help and offer advice to anybody who wants to speak to me.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Munir. Really appreciate it. So anyone that wants to take Munir up on his very generous offer,
I'll stick my details in the chat.
He's got a wealth of information, an experience about trade, international trade. Anyway, so the brochure suggests arrival on the Friday. Would you be flying out on the Thursday or the Friday itself? That's completely up to you. If you fly out Thursday evening and arrive Friday morning, or you want to fly out Friday morning and arrive, I think you probably have to leave on the Thursday to be able to get there on the Friday, bearing in mind the time zone. So probably you'll be flying on the Thursday. So don't book to go out with your friends on Thursday evening. You should be on a plane probably. I hope that helps. On the note of legislation restrictions in China, is there a license required to deliver tuition services from overseas? Linda, is there a license required for overseas tuition? I don't think there is there?
Well, sorry, I didn't get your
Is a license required for UK-based tutors to teach overseas into China?
No. But however, the company will ask you. They ask you. They because in UK you don't necessarily have to license, open the tutoring company, but the Chinese company will ask you, how about your tutor? Your tutor, the background, okay? Do they have some teaching qualifications, or what they are, you know, the education is? They will ask these questions. But in China, the government, they will not require this.
You happy with that, you can?
Yeah, I agree with Linda. I think maybe the tutor's qualification will be more important. So things like QTS will definitely come in handy when you talk to the tuition providers. But really, at the end of the day, you know, because the purpose of this trip is that we want to build up B2B connections for UK tuition businesses with local China-based tuition businesses, so that we are essentially providing a service to the customers in China through them. So the B2B transaction does not require you any special license. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay. That is all the questions. I think that we're going to wrap out there. If you've still got questions, then obviously please email them through to us at info@thetutorsassociation.org.uk. The registration form, if you have decided you're definitely going to commit, you need to complete the registration form. I'm going to send it in the chat, but it was already on that you can access it via the web page on the link that I sent at the very, very top of the chat. So the very beginning of the chat, I sent the link to the registration, to the web page, which has got the registration form on it. You need to register by Sunday, the 23rd of June at the latest. But I suspect that if you register on Sunday, the 23rd of June, maybe the first 25 places have already gone. But if you only register once you're definitely committed you want to attend, there are 3 options. You'll need to specify which one you want. You have until Wednesday, the 26th of June, to pay the deposit, the 50% deposit for your chosen option. Okay. After that, so on Monday, the 24th of June, we will tell people it will confirm places for the people who have already registered and paid the deposit so far. We'll then provide we will provide an explicit confirmation to you if you're definitely coming and the trip is definitely going to head to say book flights and visas now. Okay, and we'll provide further guidance at that point in time. So we don't suggest you book any flights or any hotels if you're doing option 2 until you get confirmation from us. Once you get confirmation from us, we will be very explicit and we'll say, right, the trip is going ahead, you're definitely on it. Here's the balance invoice, because obviously the other 50%. And you should go and book flights and whatever else now. We will tell you when you should do that. Okay, we will try and provide as much support as possible through the process. And we'll obviously try and make sure it's a very productive and useful trip. So just let's say thank you very much to everyone for attending. A big thank you to Yukon and Linda and also to Munir for their support so far, which has been very, very much appreciated. And thank you for everyone for coming.